spent a lot of time in what I would call just gameplay prototyping, right? And so all I was trying to do was like figure out what sort of new sets of rules, what sort of new elements could I add into this game that expands the gameplay more, so that I could have more puzzles, so that we could kind of carve out the space of like what the gameplay is going to be. So that was kind of the period of time where I was like, okay, well, what if there were pushable blocks, and what if when you're standing in front of this pushable block, the moose can't see you, right? And what if like when the moose hit the pushable block, they stop, right? What kind of possibilities does that allow for? What kind of interesting puzzles might come out of that? So I tried that and I played with it, and indeed I discovered, a handful of like good puzzles that come out of that. And then I kept kind of going with it. I kept kind of thinking, okay, well, what if like the pushable blocks, some of them were cracked and like they blow up or like they explode when hit? What sort of consequences happen from that? What if you hit a moose from the side with another moose? What happens there? And as like, well, he rotates. Okay, well, where does that go? What happens if two moose are facing each other and they get angry? How do we solve that problem? Because like, if they're on even tiles, then they'll smash into each other, and that's fine, and that works. But if there's like one tile between them, now they're like offset by one, and like what the hell? And like, do we allow that state or not? And so like, what's the solution to this problem, right? From a design perspective. And so I decided the right answer was they don't charge each other, because like, for some contrived reason, but like, so you have to like figure out like what the rules are, and then that yields puzzles. So there's like a number of different scenarios or things that kind of pop out of that. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great if like there was a little bit of extra freedom that we could add to the moose? So maybe something where you could push a moose around. And so that's kind of where the cart concept comes from, because I wanted you to be able to more closely control or have a little bit more freedom over where you put the moose. And so that's where we have the carts and the rail carts. The rail carts just seem to be like the best solution to that, or the best way for that to work. And it had this consequence of yielding the game's most interesting puzzles from my, in my opinion. So I was sketching out gameplay for a while and trying to figure, and I tried adding a bunch of different stuff. I tried like rafts. I tried like, I think I tried like exploding blocks. I tried a bunch of stuff that just like didn't go anywhere. And then I eventually kind of, and the last thing they added in was like moose that like, when they charge, they like flip around. And that yields puzzles. So I got to this point where I got about 50 puzzles that I thought were good, and by good, I sort of mean that they have like a lot of emergent gameplay in them. There are usually some interesting consequence of the rules, and then you design the puzzle around it. And by good, I also mean that when I put the build out in front of playtesters, they came back and they said, we like these puzzles. And so I kept the ones that they liked, and then I got rid of the ones that they didn't like, and I ended up with about 50. And so that's what I would call that the more creative phase.
The pre-production, would you call it?
Yeah, maybe. I think it could be, because the thing is, you can't really put a timeline on it. You can't say like, oh, there's a Jira ticket to make like, 49 puzzles, and like, let's do a ticket for every puzzle, and like, we're going to be done in a month, right? And like, when the sprint master says the thing, then like, now we're done being creative. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I went through that period of the game's development process, where then I was like, okay, now we've got what I would consider enough to have a good game, a good puzzle game. It's small. It's not a big puzzle game, but it's about like 4 to 8 hours of gameplay. But it's a game. I can sell it, and it would be my first game, which is cool. So like, that's awesome. Like, let's finish it up. And then, now we're kind of going, like, we're entering into what you would call the production phase.
Oh,
right?
can you tell a little bit more about the time? How much time did it took from the game jam part to get to this
Yeah.
stage?
So after the game jam, I got another job for like about a year.
Oh, okay.
So I was back doing the iOS thing. I was like, how much more money do I have to save before I'm financially independent? And I can just like not have, and like that was a whole conversation. It was like, and my spouse was like, just one more of these, and then like we could be done, I promise. And like, um, so that's kind of where that went. And so I did that for like about a year. And in my spare time, my copious spare time, I was prototyping the gameplay. So I was working a job and kind of prototyping the gameplay. And then after about that year or so, I was kind of like, I sort of finished the thing that I wanted to finish for my job. Like usually when I take a contract, although most companies don't like to be like performance oriented or like focus on like actually accomplishing anything, I try to like, call me old fashioned. I try to like set a goal for that company and like accomplish the goal. And then like if the goal leads for them to like make more money than I cost, then I think that's good for both of us. So I felt like I had accomplished the goal for my client.
How old-fashioned.
It's quite old-fashioned, and they made more money on me than I cost, which I think is good, And
Yeah.
so then I was like, it's time for me to go. And then right around that time is when or it might have been like a few months afterwards, a few months after I left, then my YouTube videos started blowing up. And then I was like, oh, okay, I now have an audience. All I got it. And now I'm getting all this like criticism that's like, this guy never finished a game. And like, he'll never do it. And then I was like, fuck you, I'm going to do it. And
It's called motivation.
It's called motivation. Yeah. So that video blew up, and then I was like, okay, well, it would be like in poor taste if I didn't just like finish my first game and then like show them that I can do the thing, right? And I have these like 49 levels. Like, let's actually enter into the like production phase of this thing, and like let's finish this game.